The Great Hall of the Galactic Council stretched out like a massive dome filled with thousands of beings from across the stars. Strange creatures with tentacles, fur, scales, and forms that defied description sat in their assigned seats. The air buzzed with different languages being translated through universal devices. Today's meeting was special. The humans had called for an emergency session. Admiral Sarah Chun walked slowly down the center aisle. Her black uniform looked simple compared to the colorful robes and elaborate armor worn by other species. Behind her walked 3 other humans, all wearing the same plain clothes. The alien representatives watched them with curious eyes. Some whispered to each other about how boring humans looked. At the front of the hall sat Elder Counselor Vexthal, a being so old that his purple skin had turned almost gray. His forearms rested on the curved desk as his large eyes studied the approaching humans. Next to him sat representatives from every major species in the galaxy. The Hegemony Coalition members sat in a special section, their red and gold uniforms showing their importance. Ambassador Zethary of the Hegemony Coalition stood up as the humans reached the speaking platform. His tall, thin body moved like a snake as he gestured with his 6 arms. "Honored Council," he said in a voice that sounded like music, "we welcome our newest members to speak. Though I wonder what these young humans could possibly need to discuss with such urgency." Admiral Chung stepped forward and placed a small device on the speaking platform. The device projected a hologram showing star maps and lists of data. The hall became quiet as everyone leaned forward to see. "Honored council members," Admiral Chung began, her voice calm and steady. "For the past 6 months, we have documented systematic enslavement and genocide conducted by the Hegemony Coalition across 3 star systems. The Kepler system, the Ross system, and the Glee system have all been stripped of their native populations. Over 40 billion sentient beings have been killed or enslaved." A wave of whispers filled the hall. Several representatives looked shocked, while others seemed bored. Elder Counselor Vexthal raised one of his hands for silence. Ambassador Zethary laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "The humans present old news as if it were scandal. These worlds contain primitive species that could not govern themselves. The Hegemony Coalition brought order and purpose to chaos. This is how galactic civilization advances." Dr. James Park, the human standing behind Admiral Chun, stepped forward with another device. New holograms appeared showing recordings of the destroyed worlds. Images of burning cities, mass graves, and slave camps filled the air above the platform. The whispers in the hall grew louder. "These recordings were taken by our survey ships," Dr. Park said. "The species on these worlds had developed space travel, agriculture, and complex societies. They were not primitive. They were murdered for their resources." Elder Counselor Vexthal studied the images with his large eyes. "Even if these claims are true," he said slowly, "what would the humans have the Council do? The Hegemony Coalition is one of our oldest and most powerful members. Humans have been part of our galactic community for only 50 years. You are barely evolved primates who have learned to fly between stars." Several representatives from the Hegemony Coalition laughed at this comment. Ambassador Zethary nodded his snake-like head in agreement. "The Elder speaks wisdom. Humans should focus on learning from their betters, rather than making accusations they cannot support." Admiral Chun reached into her uniform and pulled out a thin crystal tablet. She held it up for everyone to see. This document contains humanity's formal demand. The Hegemony Coalition will immediately stop all hostile actions in the 3 systems. They will release all slaves and provide reparations to the families of those killed. They have 30 standard days to begin compliance. The laughter in the hall grew louder. Ambassador Zethary's 6 arms waved in the air as he struggled to control his amusement. "And what if we refuse these demands from the baby species?" Admiral Chun looked directly at him with cold eyes. Then humanity will consider the Hegemony Coalition to be at war with us. The laughter stopped. The hall became so quiet that the sound of breathing could be heard. Elder Counselor Vexthul leaned forward in his chair. "Admiral Chun," he said carefully, "surely you understand that humanity's entire military consists of perhaps a few hundred ships. The Hegemony Coalition commands thousands of vessels and controls the military forces of 30 species. You cannot be serious about threatening war." Admiral Chun nodded slowly. "We are completely serious, Elder Counselor. We tried diplomacy. We presented evidence. We made reasonable demands. Now we try something we are unfortunately very good at." Ambassador Zethari stood up again, his body swaying with anger. "The humans insult this council with their foolish threats. The Hegemony Coalition has existed for over 1,000 years. We have conquered star systems when humans were still living in caves on their pathetic little world." Dr. Park stepped forward again. "Ambassador Zethari, humans stopped living in caves about 40,000 years ago. We've spent most of our history fighting wars. We became very skilled at it." Elder Counselor Vexthul waved his hands for order as more whispers filled the hall. "Admiral Chun, the Council cannot support a war based on these accusations. If humanity wishes to remain a member of galactic civilization, you will withdraw these threats immediately." Admiral Chun picked up her devices from the platform. The other humans began walking back down the aisle toward the exit. As they reached the doors, Admiral Chun turned around one last time. "Elder Counselor," she called out, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. "Humanity formally withdraws from all galactic trade agreements effective immediately. Our ships will no longer use the standard shipping lanes. Our colonies will no longer participate in galactic commerce. We wish the Council well in their future deliberations." The four humans walked out of the hall, leaving thousands of confused alien representatives behind. Ambassador Zethari laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. "Typical human cowardice," he announced to the hall. "They bark loudly but slink away when challenged by their betters." Elder Counselor Vexthul stared at the empty doorway where the humans had disappeared. Something in Admiral Chun's voice had troubled him. In his long life, he had heard many species make threats. Usually, those threats came with anger or fear. The human admiral had sounded like someone reading a grocery list within hours. Reports began arriving at the council building. Human ships were disappearing from every major trade route in the galaxy. Human colonies had stopped answering communication requests from other species. It was as if humanity had simply vanished from galactic civilization. Elder Counselor Vexthul sat alone in his office, studying the reports. Most of his advisors believed the humans were retreating in fear. But something felt wrong. In 50 years of contact, humans had never shown cowardice. They were stubborn, direct, and sometimes rude, but never afraid. He activated his personal communication device and tried to contact the human embassy. The device showed only a message. "The Embassy of Humanity is temporarily closed. Please direct all inquiries to your local military commander." For the first time in centuries, Elder Counselor Vexthul felt a chill run down his spine. 3 days after the humans left the council chambers, strange reports began arriving from across the galaxy. Intelligence officers from different species sent confused messages to their leaders. Something unusual was happening in human space, but nobody could understand what it meant. Captain Morpheus of the Altarian Intelligence Service sat in his ship just outside the Sol system, watching through powerful telescopes. What he saw made no sense according to everything he knew about galactic civilizations. Massive ships were moving between Earth, Mars, and the outer colonies in an endless stream. But these were not military vessels. They were cargo ships, passenger transports, and civilian freighters. "Control," he spoke into his communication device. I am observing unprecedented civilian ship movement in the Sol system. Recommend immediate analysis. Back on Altair Prime, General Kexter read the report with growing confusion. Civilian ships? He muttered to his aide. Why are humans moving civilians during a political crisis? Are they evacuating their colonies? Similar reports came from observers near every human world. The Rigel Collective's spies reported the same thing from the Alpha Centauri system. The Vegan Trade Alliance sent urgent messages about unusual activity around human mining colonies. Everywhere humans lived, civilian ships were moving in patterns that made no sense. Elder Counselor Vexthal called an emergency meeting of the Intelligence Committee. Representatives from 12 major species gathered in a secure chamber deep beneath the council building. The room's walls showed holographic displays of human space, with thousands of red dots marking ship movements. Explain this to me, Vexthal demanded, his forearms pointing at the displays. What are the humans doing? General Kexter stood up, his blue fur bristling with confusion. Elder Counselor, our best analysis suggests the humans are conducting the largest civilian evacuation in galactic history. Every transport ship they own is moving people and cargo between their worlds. Evacuation from what? Asked Commander Yuthtal of the Andromedan fleet. Her insect-like head tilted as she studied the data. There are no natural disasters in human space. No enemy fleets approaching their worlds. What are they afraid of? Dr. Zexanin, the Council's chief analyst, activated a new display showing population movements. The data becomes more confusing when we examine the details. Humans are not evacuating people away from potential battle zones. They are moving people toward them. The room fell silent as everyone stared at the new information. Red lines on the display showed millions of humans moving from safe inner worlds toward the frontier colonies near Hegemony Coalition space. That makes no sense, General Kexter said slowly. No species moves civilians toward danger during a military crisis. Elder Counselor Vexthal's large eyes studied the patterns carefully. Dr. Zexanin, what is the scale of these population movements? The analyst touched several controls, and numbers appeared in the air above the table. The representatives gasped as they read the figures. In 3 days, humans have moved over 200 million people between their worlds, Dr. Zexanin reported. Another 500 million are currently in transit. At current rates, they will relocate over 1 billion people within the next week. Commander Yutal's insect eyes widened in shock. 1 billion? That is impossible. The logistics alone would require the entire civilian fleet of our species working for months. It gets worse, Dr. Zexanin continued. Our economic monitoring stations report that human civilian industries are converting to military production at unprecedented rates. Entertainment facilities are becoming weapons factories. Luxury resorts are being transformed into training centers. Civilian shipyards are modifying cargo vessels for unknown purposes. General Kexter stood up abruptly, his chair falling backward. They are not evacuating. They are mobilizing. The entire human species is mobilizing for war. Elder Counselor Vexthal felt his blood turn cold. How many humans are participating in this mobilization? Dr. Zexanin checked his data displays. All of them, Elder Counselor. Every human colony, station, and world is contributing to what appears to be a military effort. Even their children are participating in support roles. The room erupted in shocked whispers. Commander Yithtal clicked her mandibles in distress. That is impossible. No species can mobilize their entire population for war. It would destroy their economy, their society, their civilization. Perhaps that is what they are doing, suggested General Kexter. Perhaps humans are so frightened of the Hegemony Coalition that they are destroying themselves rather than face conquest. Elder Counselor Vexthal was not convinced. Dr. Zexanin, Show me the economic data from human space. New displays appeared showing production figures, resource allocation, and economic indicators. Instead of collapse, the data showed the opposite. Human productivity had increased by 300% in just 3 days. Their industrial output was climbing every hour. They are not destroying their economy, Dr. Zexinen said in a confused voice. They are optimizing it. Every human world is producing exactly what the others need. Resources are flowing between their colonies with perfect efficiency. It is as if their entire species became a single perfectly coordinated organism. Commander Yithtal studied the shipping data with growing alarm. Look at these cargo manifests. They are moving raw materials, processed goods, and finished products with no waste, no delays, and no conflicts. This level of coordination should be impossible for any species. General Kexter pulled up military intelligence reports from the frontier. Our sources near the border report something even more disturbing. Human recruitment centers have waiting lists. They have more volunteers than they can train. And the volunteers appear to be enthusiastic. Enthusiastic about what? Elder Counselor Vexthal asked. About going to war, Elder Counselor. Our spies report humans singing while working 18-hour shifts in weapons factories. Civilian engineers compete with each other to design better military equipment. Parents encourage their children to join military training programs. The room became quiet as everyone tried to understand what they were hearing. In galactic civilization, war was conducted by professional military castes while civilians continued their normal lives. The idea of an entire species voluntarily participating in warfare was alien to them. Dr. Zexinen activated another display showing communication intercepts from human space. Perhaps most disturbing are the intercepted civilian communications. Humans are discussing the upcoming conflict as if it were a community project. They share information about production quotas, volunteer schedules, and military preparations with the same enthusiasm other species show for festivals or sporting events. Elder Counselor Vexthal stood up slowly, his ancient body feeling suddenly fragile. How many humans do we estimate will be directly involved in combat operations? Dr. Zexinen checked his calculations twice before answering. Based on current mobilization rates, approximately 150 million humans will be trained for direct combat within the next 30 days. Another 600 million will be supporting the war effort in various roles. The silence in the room was deafening. General Kexter's blue fur had turned pale. Elder Counselor, the largest military force in galactic history, was the Great Fleet of Andromedans, which numbered 20 million warriors. The humans are mobilizing 7 times that number for a war against a single coalition. Commander Yithtal's voice was barely a whisper. What kind of species mobilizes 150 million soldiers for war? Elder Counselor Vexthal walked slowly to the window that looked out over the council city. In the distance, he could see ships from hundreds of different species going about their normal business. Trade, diplomacy, and peaceful cooperation continued as usual throughout galactic civilization. But somewhere in the darkness of space, an entire species was preparing for something that none of them understood. Dr. Zexinen, he said without turning around. Send a priority message to the Hegemony Coalition leadership. Tell them we need to discuss the human situation immediately. As the intelligence meeting ended and the representatives returned to their ships, none of them noticed the small human observation post hidden in the asteroid belt near the council station. The humans had been listening to every word. 28 days after the human ultimatum, Ambassador Zethari stood in the command center of the Coalition flagship Eternal Glory. Around him, his military advisors prepared for what they expected to be a quick victory over the upstart humans. The massive ship, nearly 20 kilometers long, was the pride of the Hegemony Coalition fleet. Admiral Morgoth, Zethari said to the fleet commander. Report on human military activity. Admiral Morgoth. A creature covered in red scales with 4 eyes that could see in different directions, consulted his tactical displays. Ambassador, our scouts report human forces gathering at Kepler Station. Intelligence suggests they have assembled approximately 200 vessels for their attack. Zethari laughed, his 6 arms waving with amusement. 200 ships? We have brought 300 of our finest warships to this battle. Each of our vessels is larger and more powerful than anything in the human fleet. This will be over quickly. The coalition fleet moved majestically through space toward Kepler Station. Each ship was a masterpiece of military engineering, bristling with weapons and protected by powerful shields. The crews were professional warriors from 30 different species, trained in the ancient traditions of honorable combat. As they approached the battle zone, Admiral Morgoth studied his sensors with growing confusion. Ambassador, I am detecting unusual readings from the human position. What kind of unusual readings? Zethari asked. The sensor data suggests there are more human ships than we initially calculated. Much more. Before Zethari could respond, the human fleet came into visual range. What the coalition officers saw made them question their own equipment. Instead of 200 ships, they were looking at thousands of small vessels spread across a vast area of space. Admiral Morgoth counted the contacts on his display 3 times before speaking. Ambassador, I count over 10,000 human vessels, but they are all small ships. Fighters, corvettes, and modified civilian craft. No capital ships or battle cruisers. Zethari studied the tactical display with amusement. The humans have brought their entire civilian fleet to fight us. How pathetic. They obviously do not understand space warfare. The coalition fleet formed into their traditional battle formation. Large ships arranged in neat lines, each captain ready to engage in honorable single combat with enemy vessels of similar size. It was the way space battles had been fought for thousands of years. The human fleet did something that had never been seen before in galactic warfare. Instead of forming lines or any recognizable formation, they began moving like a living cloud. Small groups of ships would dart forward, attack, and retreat, while other groups moved to support them. The entire fleet seemed to act as a single organism with 10,000 moving parts. What are they doing? Admiral Morgoth asked, his 4 eyes trying to track the movement patterns. This is not how space battles are conducted. Admiral Chun's voice came through the communication system, broadcasting on all frequencies. Coalition Fleet, this is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Human Defense Force. You have 30 seconds to surrender. After that, we will consider you to be hostile targets. Zethari grabbed the communication device. Admiral Chun, you face the finest fleet in galactic history with your collection of converted cargo ships. Surrender now, and we will allow your people to live slaves. Thank you for your answer, Admiral Chun replied calmly. All human units, begin Operation Swarm. Remember, this is a math problem, not a heroic adventure. Calculate efficiently. The human attack began unlike anything the coalition had ever experienced. Instead of ship-to-ship duels or organized battle lines, thousands of small vessels swarmed over the coalition fleet like angry insects. The humans used their superior numbers to overwhelm individual targets, with 50 or 60 small ships attacking each coalition vessel simultaneously. Admiral Morgoth watched in horror as his carefully planned battle formation fell apart. They are not fighting with honor, he shouted into his communication device. They attack our ships 50-1. Honor is irrelevant, came Admiral Chun's calm voice over the communication channel. We are solving the problem of your existence. The coalition ships, designed for single combat with vessels of similar size, found themselves unable to defend against swarm attacks. Their massive weapons could destroy human ships easily, but there were always more humans to take their place. For every human vessel destroyed, 2 more appeared to continue the attack. What shocked the Coalition officers most was the human reaction to their own losses. When Coalition ships were destroyed, their crews would scream, curse, or pray to their gods. When human ships were destroyed, the other human ships simply adjusted their tactics and continued fighting. There was no emotion, no anger, no fear. The humans fought like machines, calculating the most efficient way to win. Admiral Morgoth watched 47 of his mighty warships explode in the first hour of battle. Human losses numbered over 1,000 vessels, but they showed no sign of stopping. If anything, they seemed to become more efficient as the battle continued. Ambassador, Admiral Morgoth reported, his voice shaking, "We must retreat. The humans are destroying us." Zethary could not believe what he was seeing. How are they coordinating so many ships? Our intelligence report said humans have no hive mind, no psychic abilities. How do they move together so perfectly? Unknown to the Coalition, every human ship was connected through quantum communication networks that allowed instant coordination across the entire fleet. Human commanders could adapt their tactics in real time, sharing information and adjusting strategies faster than any enemy could respond. Coalition vessel, Eternal Glory. Admiral Chun's voice came through the communication system again. Your fleet has been reduced by 60%. Do you wish to surrender? Or shall we continue with the mathematical solution to this problem? Admiral Morgoth looked at his tactical display. In 3 hours of fighting, the humans had lost 1,247 small vessels. The Coalition had lost 180 major warships, including some of the most powerful vessels in galactic history. What kind of species considers losing over 1,000 ships to be acceptable? Admiral Morgoth whispered. Zethary studied the battle data with growing horror. The humans were treating their own casualties as acceptable parameters in a mathematical equation. They showed no emotional attachment to their ships or crews, only cold calculation about the most efficient way to achieve victory. Admiral Chun, Zethary broadcast, "We surrender. Please call off your attack." The human fleet immediately stopped firing and moved into defensive positions around the surviving Coalition ships. The transition from combat to peace happened so quickly that it took the Coalition officers several minutes to understand that the battle was over. "Coalition survivors," Admiral Chun announced. "Prepare to be boarded for prisoner processing. Medical teams are standing by to treat your wounded. Any attempts to restart hostilities will result in complete destruction of your fleet." As human ships moved to secure the battlefield, Admiral Morgoth sent an emergency message to Hegemony Coalition headquarters. His report was simple and terrifying. Human military doctrine is unlike anything in galactic history. They do not fight wars. They solve problems. Recommend immediate review of all strategic assumptions regarding human capabilities. Within hours, news of the Battle of Kepler Station reached the Galactic Council. For the first time in galactic history, a major fleet had been destroyed by swarm tactics. The humans had won not through superior technology or warrior skill, but through mathematical precision and overwhelming coordination. Elder Counselor Vexthal read the battle reports in his private office. The numbers told a story that chilled him to his ancient bones. The humans had engaged in their first major space battle and treated it like a business transaction. He activated his communication device and sent an urgent message to all council members. Emergency session called. Topic: Reassessment of human military capabilities. Attendance mandatory. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike any meeting in the organization's 1,000-year history. Representatives from every major species crowded into the Great Hall, their voices creating a buzzing mixture of panic, confusion, and fear. At the center of it all sat Elder Counselor Vextel, his ancient face showing worry for the first time in centuries. General Kexter stood at the speaking platform, his blue fur now completely gray from stress. Behind him, holographic displays showed the aftermath of the Battle of Kepler Station. Twisted metal from Coalition warships floated in space, while small human vessels moved between them like busy worker insects. Honored Council, General Kexter began, his voice shaking slightly. Our fundamental understanding of human military capability was completely wrong. The Battle of Kepler Station was not a victory achieved through superior technology or tactical genius. It was a mathematical exercise in efficient destruction. Commander Yith Tao of the Andromedan Fleet clicked her mandibles nervously. General, explain how humans coordinated 10,000 ships without any form of hive mind or psychic connection. Dr. Zexanin activated new displays showing communication intercepts from the human fleet. Commander, our analysis reveals that humans use something they call quantum communication networks. Every human ship was connected to every other ship instantly across unlimited distance. They could share information and coordinate tactics faster than our sensors could track. The hall erupted in shocked whispers. Elder Counselor Vextel raised his hands for silence. Dr. Zexanin, are you saying that humans have technology that allows instant communication across space? Yes, Elder Counselor. But that is not the most disturbing discovery. Dr. Zexanin activated another display showing battle analysis data. Our computer models cannot explain how humans made tactical decisions during the battle. They adapted to changing conditions faster than our fastest military computers could calculate responses. General Kexter stepped forward again. The humans did not just defeat the Coalition fleet. They solved it. Like a mathematical equation. They calculated exactly how many ships they needed to sacrifice to achieve victory. And they accepted those losses without hesitation. Ambassador Telquith of the Rigel Collective stood up, her crystal body flashing with different colors as she spoke. This behavior is unprecedented in galactic warfare. Every species shows emotional response to battlefield losses. Every species has some limit to acceptable casualties. The humans showed no emotion at all. Dr. Zexanin brought up communication records from the battle. Listen to this intercepted conversation between human ship commanders during the fight. The hall filled with the voices of human pilots talking calmly, while explosions and weapons fire could be heard in the background. Eagle 7 is down. Adjusting formation to compensate. Roger that. Moving to fill the gap. Calculate new approach vectors. Enemy vessel Alpha 7 has reinforced shields. Recommend increasing attack force to 70 units. Confirmed. Additional units moving to support. Maintain current loss ratios. The recording ended and the hall was silent. No screaming, no anger, no fear. Just calm voices discussing the battle like they were planning a construction project. Elder Counselor Vextel felt cold fear spreading through his ancient body. Dr. Zexanin, what is the current status of human military forces? The analyst activated displays showing the entire galaxy with human positions marked in red. Elder Counselor, since the Battle of Kepler Station, humans have continued their military buildup. Current estimates suggest they now have over 300 million people directly involved in military operations. The number hit the council like a physical blow. Commander Yith Tao's insect eyes widened in disbelief. 300 million soldiers? That is impossible. No species in galactic history has ever fielded such a force. It gets worse, Dr. Zexanin continued. Intelligence reports from human space indicate they are preparing to attack Darcis Prime, the most heavily fortified world in Coalition territory. General Kexther's voice was barely a whisper. How many humans are they sending to Tharsis Prime? Dr. Zexanin checked his data 3 times before answering. 100 million soldiers, 15 million vehicles, and 500,000 spacecraft. The council hall erupted in chaos. Representatives shouted in dozens of languages while others sat in stunned silence. The numbers were beyond anything they could comprehend. Elder Counselor Vexthul pounded his gavel repeatedly to restore order. Silence, he commanded. Dr. Zexanin, how are humans maintaining supply lines for such a massive force? The displays changed to show shipping routes and resource flows throughout human space. Elder Counselor, humans have converted their entire economy into a war machine. Every world produces specific materials needed for the war effort. Every civilian freighter has become a military transport. Every factory has been converted to produce weapons, vehicles, or supplies. Ambassador Telquith's crystal body pulsed with confused colors. Their economy should have collapsed by now. No species can sustain such total mobilization. That is what we thought, Dr. Zexanin replied. But human productivity has actually increased by 500% since the war began. They seem to become more efficient when working toward a common goal. General Kexter activated his personal display to show intelligence reports from human worlds. Our spies report something even more disturbing. Human civilians are not being forced to support the war effort. They are volunteering. Every human world shows the same pattern: complete voluntary participation in the war effort. Elder Counselor Vexthul stood up slowly, his forearms trembling. Show me the intelligence reports on human civilian behavior. The displays filled with spy recordings from human worlds. The council watched in amazement as human children worked in factories. Human elderly organized supply deliveries, and human families competed with each other to contribute more to the war effort. There were no protests, no resistance, no complaints about the hardships of total war. This cannot be natural behavior, Commander Yiftal said. No species willingly commits their entire civilization to warfare. Dr. Zexanin brought up historical analysis data. Commander, our xenobiologists have been studying human history since first contact 50 years ago. We may have made a fundamental error in understanding what humans are. What do you mean? Elder Counselor Vexthul asked. Every species in the galaxy evolved with natural predators that limited their population and forced them to develop defensive behaviors. Humans are the only species we have encountered that eliminated their predators and then became the dominant predator on their world. The implications of this statement began to sink in around the hall. Dr. Zexanin continued. Human history is essentially 10,000 years of continuous warfare between different human groups. They did not develop civilization despite warfare. They developed civilization through warfare. Competition and conflict are not aberrations in human behavior. They are the foundation of human society. General Kexter activated recordings of human entertainment broadcasts. Look at this intelligence we gathered from human civilian entertainment. Their children play games that simulate warfare. Their popular stories celebrate military heroes. Their sports are mock battles between competing teams. The council watched clips of human children playing with toy soldiers, human adults cheering at competitive sports events, and human entertainment that glorified military service and sacrifice for the common good. They have been preparing for this war their entire lives, General Kexter said quietly. Every human child grows up learning to work together, compete effectively, and sacrifice for the group. They call it education, but it is really military training. Elder Counselor Vexthul sat down heavily in his chair. Dr. Zexanin, what is your professional assessment of human military capabilities? The analyst was quiet for a long moment before answering. Elder Counselor, humans are not just another species that has learned to wage war. They are war. Everything about their biology, psychology, and culture has been shaped by 10,000 years of constant conflict. They do not have a military. They are a military disguised as a civilization. Commander Yithtal's voice was filled with terror. What does this mean for the rest of the galaxy? Dr. Zexinen looked around the hall at all the frightened alien faces. It means that we are dealing with a species that views war not as a last resort, but as a tool for solving problems. They do not fight to gain territory or resources. They fight to eliminate threats to their idea of proper behavior. Elder Counselor Vexthul activated his emergency communication device. Get me a direct line to Admiral Chun immediately. The Council needs to discuss terms. As the emergency session ended, representatives from across the galaxy returned to their ships with a new understanding. Humanity was not just another species with advanced technology. They were something that had never existed in galactic history, a species evolved for war who had retained their cooperative instincts. The combination was more terrifying than any weapon. 73 days after the human ultimatum, the Great Hall of the Galactic Council looked like a different place. Where once there had been confident discussions and casual diplomacy, now there was nervous tension and careful whispers. The Hegemony Coalition section sat nearly empty. With only 3 representatives present to sign the surrender documents, Admiral Sarah Chun walked down the center aisle again. But this time, the alien representatives watched her with very different eyes. Fear, respect, and careful attention replaced the earlier amusement and dismissal. Behind her walked Dr. James Park and 2 other human officers, all wearing the same simple black uniforms that now seemed somehow more intimidating than the elaborate armor of other species. Elder Counselor Vexthul looked older than his ancient years as he prepared to oversee the surrender ceremony. In 73 days, the entire galactic order had changed. The mighty Hegemony Coalition had collapsed not from military defeat, but from complete abandonment by its member species. Ambassador Zethari, the former coalition representative, now sat in a prisoner transport pod that floated beside the speaking platform. His 6 arms were bound, and his snake-like body looked deflated with defeat. War crimes charges awaited him and the entire coalition leadership. Admiral Chun placed the surrender documents on the speaking platform and activated a holographic display showing the current state of the 3 liberated star systems. Where once there had been slave camps and destroyed worlds, now there were human medical ships, construction vessels, and relief operations. Honored Council, Admiral Chun began, her voice as calm as it had been when she first delivered the ultimatum. The Hegemony Coalition has surrendered unconditionally. All enslaved beings have been freed. Reparations are being calculated for the families of those killed. War crimes tribunals will begin next month on Kepler Station. Elder Counselor Vexthul nodded slowly. Admiral Chun, the Council acknowledges the complete victory of human forces. We must now discuss the future of galactic civilization. Dr. Park stepped forward with a data tablet containing humanity's post-war proposals. Elder Counselor, humanity requests the establishment of a galactic ethics committee to prevent future genocides. We also propose new laws regarding the treatment of civilian populations during conflicts. The proposals were read aloud to the Council. As each point was discussed, it became clear that humans had thought carefully about how to prevent future wars. Their suggestions were practical, enforceable, and designed to protect weaker species from stronger ones. Commander Youth Tal of the Andromedan Fleet raised one of her insect arms. Admiral Chun, the Council is curious about human military plans now that the war is over. Will you be maintaining your current force levels? Admiral Chun smiled slightly, the first emotion she has shown during any Council meeting. Commander, human military forces are already returning to civilian life. In 30 days, our military will return to pre-war levels. The Council chamber filled with surprised whispers. General Kexter of the Altarian Intelligence Service stood up. Admiral, You mobilize 300 million people for this war. How can they return to civilian life so quickly? General, Dr. Park answered, humans do not maintain permanent military castes like other species. When we need soldiers, we train civilians. When the war is over, the soldiers return to being civilians. Most of our military personnel were farmers, teachers, engineers, and shopkeepers before the war. They will be farmers, teachers, engineers, and shopkeepers again. Elder Counselor Vextel found this concept difficult to understand. Dr. Park, are you saying that humans can mobilize hundreds of millions of soldiers and then simply return them to peaceful occupations? Yes, Elder Counselor. Humans view military service as a temporary civic duty, not a permanent profession. Our soldiers are not a separate class of people. They are ordinary citizens who receive military training when needed. The implications of this statement created a wave of nervous energy throughout the hall. If humans could mobilize their entire population for war and then peacefully demobilize when the threat was over, they were unlike any species in galactic history. Ambassador Telquith of the Rigel Collective spoke up, her crystal body pulsing with confused colors. Admiral Chun, what does humanity want from the galaxy now that you have demonstrated your military superiority? Admiral Chun looked around the hall at all the worried alien faces. Ambassador, humanity wants exactly what we wanted before this war. Peaceful coexistence, fair trade, and protection for species that cannot protect themselves. But you could demand anything, Commander Yithtal said. You could claim territory, resources, tribute. Your military power exceeds anything in galactic history. Commander, Admiral Chen replied, humans did not fight this war to gain anything. We fought it to stop something. The Hegemony Coalition was committing genocide. That needed to stop. Now it has stopped. Elder Counselor Vextel leaned forward in his chair. Admiral Chun, the Council would like to offer humanity a permanent leadership position in galactic government. Your species has proven capable of maintaining peace through strength. Admiral Chun was quiet for a moment, consulting with her colleagues in whispered conversation. Finally, she turned back to the Council. Elder Counselor, humanity appreciates the offer, but we do not seek to rule other species. However, we will accept the role of galactic peacekeepers. If any species commits genocide or enslaves others, humanity will respond as we did with the Coalition. The message was clear and terrifying. Humans would not conquer the galaxy, but they would police it. Any species that chose cruelty over compassion would face the full might of human military power. Dr. Park activated a new display showing human military bases being established throughout the galaxy. The Council should know that humanity is establishing monitoring stations in every star system. We will be watching for signs of oppression, slavery, or genocide. Our response will be swift and complete. General Kexther's blue fur had turned completely white. Dr. Park, are you saying that humans will maintain surveillance over all galactic species? General, humans will maintain the capability to respond to atrocities wherever they occur. We hope never to use this capability again, but it will always be available. Elder Counselor Vextel realized that the galaxy had entered a new age. The time of strong species dominating weak ones was over. Humanity had become the ultimate arbitrator of galactic justice. Not through conquest, but through demonstrated ability to destroy any force that chose evil over good. Admiral Chun, he said slowly, what if a species objects to human monitoring? Admiral Chun's response was delivered in the same calm tone she had used to declare war. Elder Counselor, species are free to object to human monitoring. They are also free to face the consequences of any atrocities they commit without our knowledge. We recommend the first option. As the surrender ceremony concluded, representatives from across the galaxy filed out of the Council. chamber with a new understanding of their place in the universe. The strongest military force in galactic history was controlled by a species that wanted nothing more than to prevent suffering. 2 weeks later, Elder Counselor Vexthul sat in his private office, reading reports from across the galaxy. Conflicts that had simmered for decades were being resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. Species that had oppressed others were voluntarily improving their behavior. The threat of human intervention had created more peace than 1,000 years of diplomatic meetings. His communication device chimed with an incoming message from Admiral Chun, who had been promoted to ambassador after the war ended. "Elder Counselor," her voice said, "I wanted to thank you for your cooperation during the post-war transition. I hope the galaxy will enjoy a long period of peace." Vexthul activated his reply system. "Ambassador Chun, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course, Elder Counselor. Why did humanity not demand anything for themselves after demonstrating such overwhelming power?" There was a pause before Admiral Chun replied. "Elder Counselor, humans learned something important during our long history of warfare. The strongest person in the room does not need to prove it by hurting others. They prove it by protecting others." After the communication ended, Elder Counselor Vexthul sat in his office thinking about the strange species that had changed everything. Humans had waged war so efficiently that no one wanted to fight them again. They had become the galaxy's ultimate peacekeepers, not through conquest, but through the simple demonstration that cruelty would no longer be tolerated. In the years that followed, galactic civilization would remember this time as the beginning of the Great Peace. Not because humanity ruled the galaxy, but because everyone knew exactly what would happen if they chose war over peace. The humans had taught the galaxy a simple lesson. Sometimes the best way to prevent future wars is to fight the current war so decisively that nobody ever wants to fight another one.